Good evening. Good evening. Namaste, everyone. Thank you so much for joining and supporting me in my minuscule effort of bringing our insights to various career opportunities. Today, we have with us Dr. Padma Deshmukh. She is a principal at Bant Sangha Anna Leela College of Mumbai. Also, she has been the former controller of examinations for Mumbai University. And let me tell you, she has been the only woman who has been on that position since the establishment of Mumbai University in 1857. So, welcome, ma'am, welcome, and thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of this show and part of this initiative that I have done. So, before
Thank
I
you,
go
dear.
ahead with the thank you. Before I go ahead with all my questions and all my inquisitive things here, I would really want you to talk about and share with us a few things about yourself, so your journey from yourself being a student and to the principal that you are today.
Okay. I'm basically from Kerala, married to a Maharashtrian and settled in Thane, to be very
Okay.
honest. And that shows national integrity. But anyway, jokes apart, I completed my schooling in Thane itself from a normal aided school, and then went on to do my graduation from CHM College, Ulhasnagar, because I wanted to major in microbiology, and then went on to do my MSc, PG, and then my PhD, of course, under the guidance of my head of the department, who was PhD guide at that time. So I've spent practically more than 40 plus years in CHM College, both as a student, and then I joined the college as a staff member over there as an assistant professor. Went on to head the department, also was an IC principal for some time in that college, was the controller of examination of Mumbai University. And presently, after my retirement from CHM College, I've been given this assignment, or rather, I was offered this assignment. So I've taken it up because I felt sitting at home was something that was not my forte. And therefore, I thought, I mean, there's still something left in me. So I said, okay, fine. I mean, I'll take it up. So that's my journey from being a student to a principal at the present position. So that's how it went.
I
Uh,
mean,
uh,
a lot of microbiology and then PhD and now to a college which is into commerce and other you know
yeah,
account
correct.
sections. So how
Exactly,
has this
exactly.
transition been?
No, the transition, I mean, a principal is just a principal because, I mean, it's basically more of an administrative position. And, yes, of course, we are teachers first and then we become an administrator. And therefore, like there's some part of commerce which talks about environmental studies. And so, like, definitely in a small way, I try to put across what I know as a microbiologist and an environmental studies student to that. But more than that, it's more of administration once you take up a position like that, and try to ease out whatever little issues and problems are there. So that's how it goes. So presently, yes, of course, I've continued guiding students for my PhD, and therefore I'm still in touch with my subject. Of course, I would like to be more in touch with my subject because that gives me more satisfaction and pleasure. But yeah, it's okay. I mean, you can always keep reading, and with the lot of technology, you're updating the knowledge that you have, so it's quite easy, so it's okay. That's how it is.
Wow, that's really lovely. Uh, what I really wanted to understand is from being a student to now being a principal, there has definitely been a lot of changes in the educational system. The rules, norms, courses. So, how do you feel? These things have transformed. The severity of changes that you have experienced. So then, what was it, and how is it now? What is the difference?
See, when I was a student, especially of the undergraduate, that is when I was a UG student, we had the old system where it was 11 plus 4. So it was, 11th standard being our SSC, that is the board exams used to be on the 11th standard, which of course now the new education policy is also coming back with that kind of, something similar to that. But ours was 11th standard was our board exams, and then we had first year inter science, after which we could, go in for medical or for engineering or whatever that is. And then we had 2 years of majoring. So we had an honors system at that time, because you majored in a particular subject which was taught to you in 2 years, and you had a subsidiary subject with which you were, combining yourself. So we had an honors program at that time. In fact, the entire undergraduate program used to be called as an honors program. So it really was a very proud moment for all of us, because when you get your degree, saying that BSc honors, it makes you feel very nice. It's just not a single simple BSc, but a BSc with honors. So that's how it was. And of course, it used to be, the pattern used to be an annual pattern. And like what we learned in 2 years, we had to sort of give our exams in the final year, with 4 papers. And it used to be really a big problem, because 2 years portion syllabus completely. Now that entire syllabus has been divided into 3 years now. You have a first year, second year, and third year. So you're actually learning something a very small, a very minuscule of what we actually had to learn and sort of get. So it does make a difference. That is one. Second is, there were two things that I always feel is missing in the present system. That is, we had students who were very devoted, and who really were there for gaining some kind of a knowledge. The This was, the concept was not actually degree based. It was basically, you wanted to learn something more. And we always, we were behind our teachers, to pestering them, telling them, no, I mean, explain to us this. We always had queries with them, sort of, challenging them and making them read. And of course it was very difficult for them, because unlike today's situation where you put it in the Google search and you get the entire thing explained to you, they had to actually do the reading. In fact, for our PhD also, I remember how many times we visited the Hafkin library to spend the whole day over there, 8 hours, and then at the end of the day you come up with just one reference. And that getting even one reference used to be such a exciting thing for us, because we would feel that at least the day is not gone waste. So it actually makes a difference, because today the knowledge is on your fingertips, whereas at that point of time, we had to struggle to get, because no, books were not available. Very few books were there. We had, especially in my subject, we had more of foreign author books, which were very expensive for any colleges to acquire. And therefore, we had to beg, borrow, sort of. And there was no even for that matter, there was no photocopying also. So we used to sit down and write. And when I remember, yeah, when I remember, when we used to make notes, we used to keep carbon paper, because we were a group of four,
True, true.
friends. So we used to make 4 copies, and then the best copy would be all distributed, and the last copy would be always with us. So that was the kind of situation we had. And looking at the other side, yes, the teachers, they were more dedicated there at that time, in the sense, they were there because they were passionate about teaching. It was never a stepping stone, because the first thing was, teachers were never paid handsomely at that time. It was, compared to a corporate job, the teaching job paid actually very little. So anybody who entered the teaching was someone who was very passionate about teaching. So for them it was a career, that was because they liked it, or it was out of choice. Today, of course, it's a different story, because the teachers are paid quite this, especially the 6th pay and 7th pay commissions have given a good thing. Of course, I'm not talking about the unaided section. I'm talking about the aided section, where the government pays them. So it's a handsome salary that they are getting. And therefore, teachers who are not even actually, there are, I mean, of course, I don't generalize, but there are teachers who are not very passionate about teaching, but are there in, because it's a handsomely paid job. So when you have this kind of a system, that rapport between the student and the teacher is definitely, the connect is not there. So that's something that we all miss today, because as someone who has experienced the kind of teachers we had earlier, and when you see some people, of course, again I say I don't generalize, because there are still passionate teachers, but some people who are trying to be there only because it's a nice job. And as people generalize and say that teaching is a very easy job, of course, for someone who was into teaching with a passion, it is not easy. But
Absolutely.
you have black sheep in every profession. So because of some people, that concept is there. But otherwise, I think teaching is still something, like it still is a noble profession, because at the end of the day, we teachers, we definitely feel that we've done something. I mean, we have contributed something to the society. So it is there. But of course, the degree is changing, and people are looking at it more as a profession than as a a service. I mean, it's a noble service. So that kind of a thing. So that is there.
So, this was what you're talking about, what has changed and transformed so far according to the system, the education system, without that,
Yeah.
teachers and all. You know, for the professors, for the lecturers, teachers, how has the role been changed? I mean, I'm sure what we have in our memories is that, the professors would come, they would give their specific subject lectures, they would help us with the vivas or whatever is a subject related thing. But somehow I feel today that role has also transformed to a good extent. I mean, so
Yeah,
today as a
I'll
lecturer, what is the role?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I'll just give you a small incident that, I have, and which actually made me think also. It happened when I was in my UG, and, we were preparing for our final examination, and we were all a little worried about, how it would go, because we had at that time a lot of stalwarts who were, like expecting students to be absolutely, above. So I remember we had a Viva. We used to have Viva for about almost 300 marks, and 300 marks used to be our practicals. So like it was a big thing. And as a student, I was practically a very person who used to be very tongue tied. So for me, like I used to always top the written examinations, but when it came down to vivas, I used to be absolutely tongue tied, and I would never be able to, sort of speak. And I remember my teacher, like, he was taking a mock viva for all of us, and then he just asked me. He said, "Give me examples of fermented foods." Now, being a South Indian, like for me, it should have just been a very spontaneous response saying that idlis. But I just could not say anything. He went on giving me, clues after clues, and still it was something that was not happening. Then he told me, "Okay, come down with me." And he was a Gujarati teacher, basically a Gujarati person. So he came down, he took me, he went to his desk, opened his tiffin, and he said, "Eat," because he had brought doklas for so he said, "This is a fermented food." So, like it, it sort of, like gave me and this that was how our teachers used to make sure that we were sort of this. So he used to always tell me, he says, just blow, when close your eyes and make, I mean, feel that you're with your own group or something like that, and make yourself comfortable. So that was what I was saying. But today, if you see, students are more confident, students are more mature, and some of them are very mischievous also, like. So that kind of a situation where teachers have to be more careful than the students. There is a time where you have to tell the student, okay, now please curb your exuberance, and sort of it's okay. I mean, you can do that. So these are the things like coming out. Of course, as a role, teachers at that time, you were like for us. Even today, I mean, when we're talking about Guru Purnima or Teachers' Day, my own school teacher, like I remember, we make it a point to send them their, the wishes. We talk to them, and they feel good about it, that we still remember them and all those things. But today, if you see, actually, very few students are there who actually remember their teachers. And, when they leave the college, very few of them come back. Of course, you do have those kind of students, and it feels good that there are students still like that. But compared to what we as students were, the numbers are dwindling, and therefore it is more, teachers are becoming more practical, teachers are considering it has become more professional than that emotional bonding that used to be there between a student and teacher, that is actually to some extent lacking today. And when it lacks, what happens is, what you want to give and what they want to take from you, there is a limitation that comes in. So that's how it is happening. Teachers are becoming more facilitators now rather than teachers. So they are, with the systems changing and times changing, teachers are more or less guiding students to sort of find themselves, uh, inquire about themselves. So do an introversion, or like that kind of a thing. So it's becoming where teachers are there to just hold the hands. Earlier, it was like we used to hold the hands and we used to be taken for a walk, and that kind of a thing. But today we don't need that, because students have become more confident. That is there. So
So you are
roles are
saying that
changing definitely.
earlier teachers would play a role of a guide, a mentor,
Yeah,
a
true.
facilitator, everything, heads on, end, the teacher would be doing, the facilitator would be doing.
Yeah,
But today they are
yeah.
more on facilitating, letting the students explore themselves more.
Yeah, see, but that, like for us at that time, what was happening was, because, our parents were also a different set of parents, in the sense, like, unlike today's parents who are more friendly with their wards or their children, our parents, we were in awe of our parents, like we used to, especially I remember my dad, he used to be always, telling us one thing, that education is the end of everything. I mean, this is something that I can give you. That's the only legacy I can give you, and therefore study. That's it. So, like, even if you get a few marks less, we used to be scared stiff to go and tell him, that look, Papa, this is, like, we'll do better next time. So that kind of a thing. So for us, the teachers were our confidant. That means we had to, we could confide in them a lot of things, and they would actually be there to give us that kind of a support and all those things. Of course, today also we have that role played by the student, I mean, teachers. But the kind of role they're playing is totally a different, because the kind of problems that today's children are facing are totally different. In spite of the parents being very friendly with them, there are instances where the students are finding it extremely difficult to connect with their parents, or maybe even with their peers. So there are instances where teacher is definitely a mentor, a guide, and more important, a very good counselor, because they need somebody to talk to and sort of listen. So that kind of a thing is there even now. But these are two different kind of situations that are happening. So roles are still the same, but situations have changed and circumstances have changed. So
So more
that's it.
involvement is happening today with the professionalism. That's what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, it's becoming, see, because it's a good paying profession now, because of which the kind of people who are entering this profession are the ones who may not be very passionate about teaching. So that was always, I always feel, that's of course my opinion. But there are, majority of the teachers who are there in the profession are the ones who are very, very fond of teaching, and who are there to give something to the children, and who definitely want to do something for the children. But yes, of course, as I said, there are black sheeps in every profession, so it's something we need to learn to live with. So that's it.
So, ma'am, today in today's situation, if anybody wants to be a part of this industry, the education industry, as a professor, teacher, whatever role they want to carry, so what should they be prepared for? I mean, there are so many different positions, so many different roles to play in this industry today. So, what have they to maintain in their minds as to how should I be growing? What are the growth opportunities in your profession, of course?
Of course, today it has become a really a profession, in the sense that there's a lot of scope for you to build your career, and and it gives you a satisfaction also in terms of monetary benefits, as well as in terms of emotional this. For a person who would like to make teaching as a career, first thing is, of course, the eligibility thing, because the things are changing. Like when we joined, all we had to have was an MSc, that is a postgraduate degree, and we were all eligible. In fact, I remember when I finished my postgraduate, there were at least about 4 colleges who opened their arms to me and said, you can join us and all those things. But then I wanted to stay with my own college, because that's where I had grown up, and therefore I stuck to my college. But today, of course, there are lots of opportunities if you really pick up. But of course, the profession is also getting saturated, because there are a lot more candidates. The demand is, more. I mean, sorry, the supply is more than the demand. So it is happening where teachers are finding it difficult to get into a good aided college and those kind of things. Yes, of course, you have to make sure that your eligibility is there. In fact, now I think they're making PhD compulsory for, within the next 2 years. So it's going to be a thing. Of course, personally, I feel PhD has nothing to do with teaching, because getting a PhD degree does not make you a good teacher. A good teacher is a good teacher irrespective of what your qualification is. That's what I feel. But of course, then every profession has to have an eligibility. So they're making PhD compulsory. Uh, of course, when you're doing a PhD also, I think one thing that we all need to ensure that is, your PhD has to have a value. It's not that you're doing a PhD just because academically you need to have a degree. Try to do it where, your PhD can have an application for the society. Maybe, like you're coming out with some that has to be an outcome to that project. So, either you're coming up with some new innovative product, or you're coming out with new innovative ideas, so that something that can actually gain some this for you in your career, because that's how it should be. Your qualification should always be, sort of complementing your career. So that's how it is. And of course, they need to actually be passionate about teaching, because if they are not passionate about teaching, they're going to find it very boring. Personally, I always used to feel teaching was a good profession for me, simply because every year, we would be seeing new faces. And by the time they finish their undergraduation, like the connect was so good, the emotion. I still have my 1982 batch who are connected with me through WhatsApp group, and they're all, grandparents now. But it's wonderful being with them. Like we in between, of course, we had a get together. Like some of us with them, and we have a WhatsApp group in which they just talk anything, because they feel that that they have no this with us. But at the same time, they respect us so much. And I was just 2 years older to them when I joined at that particular moment. But the respect that they give me at that point of time is something that's just not this. So when you have this kind of returns, it makes a difference. So I think you need to be very, very honest to yourself and honest to your profession, and have that passion, feel good about it. And then I think you will definitely succeed, because the promotions are there. From an assistant lecturer you can become an associate professor. From an associate professor you can also become a professor. The avenues are there. You can, with your PhD, you can go into university department teaching. You can, become deans. You can become, there are so many things. It's up to you how you take it and how you perform. So there are a lot of avenues as compared to what our teachers had. My generation is a sandwich generation between that and this. But my teachers hardly had any opportunities to, grow. But today's generation, definitely, yes, if they work, they can really, really grow up. That's that. So that is how it should be. And yeah.
That's lovely. Ma'am, I'm sure, this industry has its own challenges. And I mean, you have so much of experience. I'm sure you have your set of challenges which you have faced. So today, what should the aspiring professors or lecturers be aware of or should be prepared of? You know, when they are entering this field, when they are coming to become lecturers or professors or deans, so what should they have preparation in the back of their mind to be headstrong about, to be aware about in case of challenges and troubles?
See, first thing is, when you're entering any profession for that matter, I think it is always better to have a clean slate. I mean, don't read up too much of it, because I always believe, there are lots of instances where people go prepared for an interview. Like, I mean, you are expecting certain kind of questions from the interviewers, and so you start preparing yourself. I always feel that that should not happen. I mean, that you go with a clean slate, open mind, and whatever comes spontaneous to you, that's how it should be. So I always feel that no biased, system should be there when you're entering any profession. So same is the case here also. Second thing is, I think, when you're entering, I'll tell you, especially in our college, the college that I've taken up, the assignment I've taken up now, we have a lot of migrant students, like from the north. So our college is situated in Kurla East, which is, a sort of a socio-economically backward place. And we have a lot of students, it's a diverse college. We have a lot of students, who are from both the good socio-economic background as well as from the lower strata. So what happens is, there are some who are first time learners, first generation learners from their families. So for them, that education is not something that's very, important in their life. But to make them get passionate about it, to make them understand it, so it becomes, my teachers have really a very difficult role to play there, because they have to not only think about, passing on their knowledge to them, which is very difficult because many of them don't even understand English, so it's very difficult for them to get down to the, the local language and, talk to them and all. But also at the same time, to make sure that they are, sort of connecting with them and making them feel at home, making them realize that education is something that's going to change their life forever. And make them feel that, they have to come to the college and sort of, do these kind of activities to make them really feel good. So when you are entering any profession, what I feel is, like, you have to understand the situation, understand the characters who are going to be there, the stakeholders who are there. And I think then you take a call on what is it. So don't go with judged ideas, like that this is how it's going to be. Like, I'm going to just stand in the classroom and teach for about 50 minutes, and that's my role. No, your role starts after the classes are over, when you are actually connecting with the students, making them feel that yes, education is something that's very, very important, and then, like, connecting with them. So that's the kind of situation that any teacher should have. So as I said, this will come only when you're passionate about teaching and passionate about your student. So that's how it should be.
Um, today we are facing this pandemic situation and everything has gone haphazard. I mean, I'm sure you were expecting this question from me,
I know,
but
I know, yeah.
so, so I'm really intrigued, because we have been following this traditional method of classroom sessions and one to one discussion for such a long period of time, and I'm sure none of us, like, even though we are into L&D profession or somebody in the IT industry today, even though we are so much digitalized and we are so much through with the technology, but nobody in the wildest of dreams would have thought we will go digitalized in terms of education as well. I
I
mean,
know, yeah.
college studies and everything. So, how difficult or how easy has this situation been for you all to adapt to it? What are the challenges that currently you're facing, and what do you feel that the situation we can do to make this better?
See, actually, when the lockdown was imposed in March, none of us were expecting that it would go on for such a long time. So, like March
True.
23rd, when the Prime Minister declared that there was going to be a lockdown, everybody expected that maybe, for 10 days, 15 days, it will happen. So we were a little comfortable. So, okay, I mean, something out of the blue, we were getting some free time. And then, like, when we realized that in April it was not going to happen, where, the lockdown was going to be lifted, then we all had to start thinking about how to go about it, because even the examination, they were not very sure about when it is going to be conducted. So we had to have, especially in case of PG teaching, like, a lot of syllabus had to be completed, because their exams normally occur in the month of end of May or June. So,
Yeah,
like,
true.
we have a lot of time to complete their syllabus and, do a revision for that. So, with these things in mind, there was a lot of panicking that we all went through. And then suddenly we realized that, yes, we had to think about all these things. So, one thing about my staff is they're all a young lot. So they make me feel very young about it. So they were all more tech savvy than me. So they, they started looking out for platforms and sort of, like, trying to connect with students and all those things. So you had Zoom over there at that time. So individually, everybody was trying to connect with their students, and, and except that I had to tell them that, okay, make records of what you're doing, because, at the end of the day, you're going to be judged by the records that are there.
Hmm.
So try to make sure that records are there. So yes, they did do that, but even at that point of time, it was like we were a little relaxed, in the sense, okay, I mean, it was just a temporary phase, and maybe, by June everything would be over and we would be once again opening with a proper this. But then I think,
True.
like, as the time flew by, we realized that things were getting even worse. And therefore, like, it was going to be where this was going to be the mantra. The digital
Month.
education was going to be the mantra. So everybody then started. And luckily for us, our management got us an official platform, that is Microsoft Teams. And so we started we switched over to that. And like all the teachers were given training on that, and they already were tech savvy, but they became more tech savvy about it. Then they started preparing e-contents and sort of doing that. Today they are all very comfortable with that. Of course, I'm still not very tech savvy, because only the other day I had to ask my exam chairperson to show me how to actually initiate a meeting, because I said even I don't know how to generate a link for a meeting. So I mean, they find it very funny that I always keep saying that I'm not very tech savvy, but that is how it is, because I'm never taken any I'm not, I remember like the first time I handled a computer was, or rather a email ID was, when I went on a faculty exchange program to US, and I had to I had to connect with my children who were very small. So the only way I could connect with them was through email, and that's when I learned what is an email. So that's how it is. So but today I think they are more comfortable with that. Of course, I always feel, and I think they also might agree with me, that that contact emotions that are there is lacking. When you're sitting in front of this, I think today also, if I was sitting right across to you, I would be more connecting with you than a virtual sort of a discussion. So I
True
think
that.
finally at the end of the day, that connect with the students have to happen physically. That is lacking. Of course, we are all waiting for the day it happens, and then like we'll be able to this. And even students actually are missing it out, because though they were initially saying like it was a fun time for them, but today they all feel that yes, I mean, they're also eagerly waiting for the lockdown to be lifted, and they want to come back to college, so that they can connect with their peers, they can connect with their teachers. So it is actually, yeah, pandemic has taught us a lot of things. We've taken it as a challenge, and as I always tell my staff, challenges are opportunities. So convert them into opportunities, and learn from that. So pandemic has taught us a lot of things, relations, challenges, opportunities, and those kind of things. But I think at the end of the day, every there's always a pot of gold at the end of a rainbow. So or a silver lining to a dark cloud. So we're all
Absolutely.
doing with that. So that's how it is.
Wonderful. It was amazing talking to you. You have given us so much insights with the passion, with the roles that we have for the, teachers, what all designations we can move all to. I'm sure people who are doing this, and of course, the very important part about PhD that you shared, that today it is an important thing that, people who are inspiring to become or aspiring to become teachers and professors, they have to do PhD. At the same
Yeah,
time, it has to add value to the society, which is a
for
very
the society.
important thing. I mean, because I personally wanted to do PhD, but then yes, it just keeps postponing and postponing. I hope I do it someday. But it's
Yeah, of
really an
course we'll do it.
important message. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
But
most welcome.
I truly would like to know from you the final thing. I'm not going to take much, but I really want that, one point, if you have to tell the teachers or the students, both, as to be,
Hmm.
to be able to work upon, to grow in their lives. What is that one thing that they should have? Both teachers and students, everyone inclusive.
See, for the teachers, I'll say one thing is that, like whatever you're doing, maybe teaching or anything else, you might, have this as a stepping stone to your any other career. But whatever you are doing, finally, at the end of the day, you should be satisfied with what you're doing. And, like I always tell my staff as well as my students, at the end of the day, ask yourself, like, how was the day? And if you are, if your conscience says, yes, it was very good, and you're being true to your conscience, that's it. I mean, you're not answerable to anybody. So it's your conscience, and it's your mind that is supposed to be getting satisfied with what you're doing. So for my teachers, I will say that do the best you can, give the best you can, and what you give is always going to come back to you with double the thing. So do the best. And for the students, I will say that don't look at it as an academic degree. It's not a piece of paper, because what you're gaining from the college is a knowledge, and that knowledge is going to sustain you for a life. So like, don't look at it from the point of view of a degree. So degrees, yes, because today if you see corporates don't give much value to the degrees. Ultimately it is the knowledge that counts. So yes, it's just a piece of paper to make you eligible for a job, but at the end of the day, the job is going to be yours only if you can prove that it is, you are capable of that job. So for me, I would tell my students is, like, keep your concepts very clear, understand your concepts, and the teacher is there to guide you. So use all that the teacher can give you, make the teacher work harder for you, so that, like, the teacher can give you the best, more than 100%. So, it's that, that passion from the teacher and passion for the teacher. So these are the things that should be there in the system for present, generation. So I wish
Wow.
it happens like that.
That's truly, truly wonderful. I mean, thank you so much. I'm sure the viewers who have, heard about what all we have discussed today, they have definitely gained a lot of insights, because I definitely have.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for doing this, ma'am. I hope to see you again soon and wish you all the best in
Sure.
your life.
Thank you, and wish
Thank
you
you
all the
so much.
best. And next time, I hope you finish your PhD and we meet again.
I sure will
Sure,
take
sure.
guidance from you. I'll come
Okay.
back to you for guidance.
Sure. Anytime, anytime. You're most welcome. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Yeah. Same to you. Thank you.